Titus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the Shadowrun role-playing game system. Where we last left off, we were talking about running in the shadows, and we started to talk about drugs, because it's a problem. At least the effect and similar things are problems within the world of Shadowrun. Well, let's talk a little bit more. So, your game master will call for an addiction test when it is appropriate. Now, this is not every use of a drug unless it is highly addictive. This would be after perhaps a bender of it, or something that you have a huge exposure to it in some way, a large dose of it, anything over a short period of time where you get a lot of it, then you might have to worry about making an addiction test against this. The fact is, the game master, they can just do away with the addiction test also. Depending on the circumstances in which you're doing that would call for the test, they could just say, hey, guess what? You're addicted. With what you just did, you've earned addiction. Congratulations! Now, regardless, addiction comes in basically three forms. Physical, mental, or both. Mental would be a kind of emotional crutch. It basically gives you this sense of satisfaction that you desire over and over again. Physical, your body itself is craving it. It has a need for this. And one that's both, well, it's the hardest one to kick because you have to worry about both these things at the same time. Now, when an addiction test is actually called for mental, it will be willpower plus logic that you're going to use as a dice pool to resist it. For physical, it's going to be body plus willpower that you're going to use in order to try to resist the addiction and hold on. That's going to have a threshold dependent on the type of drug or type of thing that you might be getting addicted to. Now, this will indeed be up to the game master to determine the actual DC, but the actual threshold. But there is a table in the book which helps provide a guideline to the kind of thresholds depending on the type of drugs, depending on how addictive whatever you're encountering actually is. Now, if I would glitch on an addiction test, well, I've managed to resist the addiction itself, but I had some kind of negative adverse side effect to the drug. If you critical glitch, well, I'm addicted, plus I've built up a tolerance to the drugs, which means next time, I'm going to need more in order to get my fix going. Now, really, the results of addiction depend on the level of addiction. There are 4 levels of addiction you can get. A mild addiction is basically a social person to get it. You do have these mild cravings. It isn't so hard that normally it's manageable. You can push yourself along. It's a lot more period of time spread out before you need that fix. But even then, it's not like a huge need. It's just a clawing need deep inside that you have. It's not overwhelming you. If you get to a moderate addiction, well, now you're beginning to build up some kind of tolerance. It's less time in between when you need a fix. You need more of material when you are getting that fix because you have that tolerance. So you can see we're going larger into the scale. We're getting worse now. Our addiction is driving us larger until we get to severe addiction. You're a junkie. You are desperate for a fix pretty much all the time until you get that fix, and only for a short period of time is it actually helping you out. Junkies will do anything to get it, whether he's using up all of their own money, they could sell things, they could go to thievery. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of bad things that result from this as them pushing themselves. Now, when you hit the moderate, you were already hitting physical debilitating abilities or mental abilities. Basically, your body was already beginning to shut down. At this point, your body's tearing itself apart in order to get this material, which leads us to the last one, the burnout. When you're burnt out, you've trashed your body. You've gone through so much drug that has destroyed you physically and mentally. It's torn you apart. It's caused you to be in such a terrible situation, you're just falling into abyss. That there's so many physical and mental problems that you could have that your character's breaking. Now, what this reflects it as? Well, first off, it reflects it as essence loss. You'll lose essence from this. Second, attribute loss. Both physical and mental can occur from this. You could lose these as a result of this. Mental problems. We could get some other kind of mental disorder that you're getting. Same with a physical disorder. Your body could be failing now. Something really bad's going on to it. And finally, you could get permanent stun damage. Stun damage that can't heal because of it. It's like losing boxes in your stun condition modifier. Though, since you technically can't lose them, you just get permanent stun that you can't heal because your body is trashed so much. So you can see that there's this cycle of leading from mild to moderate to severe to, of course, that burnt out, and your character is just screwed up. Along the way, it will be up to a combination between the player and the game master to determine how things are acting out for your players. Especially when you finally reach that severe level. At that point in time, you're going to have to start really reflecting and talking to your GM about how to handle this, because your character has reached such an extreme in this case. You have to reflect that in the way that they're acting and the way that they do things. Once you're addicted, you're going to need a fix occasionally. What it means is you have that craving for your drug or whatever you are that you're addicted to, that you need it. You need that fix of whatever it is. You need some of it. Whenever this feeling comes about, which depending on your level of addiction, depends on how often, how powerful it is, you're going to need to make an addiction test in order to resist this urge, that you need it, to hold it in check. And it will be modified with a penalty equal to the threshold of your original difficulty, of the original addiction level. And the difficulty, the threshold itself, should reflect basically on the level of addiction you have. So you can see that the old, how addictive it is, penalty. And now the new threshold is based upon how addicted I am to this, to see if I can keep it in check. Once you have actually managed to hold it in check, well, you still can only have two options. I can get a fix, or I can go into withdrawal. Withdrawal sucks. You go through a huge number of physical and mental problems as you are going through withdrawal. It is a terrible time and should be role-played accordingly. But in game terms, what this means is that you get a dice pool penalty to all your dice checks equivalent to the original addiction level of your drug. So whatever that was, that original threshold determines the penalty you get. And that penalty you're going to have to use to make things like addiction tests and other tests to resist, to keep resisting once you've reached this level. And you can kick the habit. You can. It can be done. If you go through all that problems and torment, you can eventually kick it. And though the result is, yeah, I'm no longer addicted. There's always that craving there. And you should work once again between player and game master to determine how it means that little craving there, that how your player would balance out maintaining control and keeping themselves in line to resist this addiction. But that's it for today. I talked more about drugs and addiction for your characters. I talked about the tests you make to determine your initial addiction and if you get addicted, the various levels of addiction, what it means to feed said addiction, and of course, overcoming it. Now, this isn't to mean there's still some more details. I do want to cover a little bit more about drugs, and then go on to BTLs, Better Than Lives, which is the electronic form of a drug, effectively. And then, hopefully next time, we'll move into security after that and start talking about security systems. Because as Shadowrunners, who are doing illegal things, you will have to face security systems at some point. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows you for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.